Yep.
Yeah. So, yep, Matt Burke. I've been working in the fitness industry for probably 14 years now. We've been kind of progressing through just different styles of it, but mainly the background has kind of always fallen back on CrossFit. I got my undergrad in kinesiology with emphasis in biology, and then I went ahead and got my graduate degree in exercise science, exercise physiology with an emphasis in cardiac rehab. And so the idea was that I'd carry that into teaching, and I took an internship at a sports training facility, and I got to work in some NFL combine training in that class, which had it was like AJ McCarron, so was kind of the big name. So this is like 2015, and fell in love with that. Fell in love with the sports performance side of it. Getting to work with them for 12 weeks and prepare them just for the combine, so that they have an opportunity to elevate their draft status, to increase their pay, and or just get drafted in general. You know, some of these guys were not going to be drafted, but they knew if you had a good combine showing that you have an opportunity there. So every week was just continuing to hone in on just these specific skills. And it was just cool to see progression that way. And so that kind of carried me into wanting to coach more. And then my wife and I, we ended up moving out to Los Angeles. And while she was a full-time ER nurse, I started coaching at a CrossFit gym, and we just kind of made that work for a while. She started competing in that sport, and then so that just made me really kind of hone in on becoming a better coach and becoming more knowledgeable about a lot of things, right? So with CrossFit, it's a generalist sport. You want to be good at weightlifting, you want to be good at gymnastics, you want to be good at, aerobic endurance. So as a coach, you have to learn or try your best to be an expert in all that as well, which then you start going down any kind of path that you want with that. It's like, hey, we wanted to go injury prevention as well. So now we're looking at, shoulder health, hip health, core strength. Okay, now let's go look at other sports that really depend on that, and let's learn from them. So we go into swim, golf, even going back to kind of football training of how do they prepare for a season of just getting beat up all year round. And it's like, okay, well, CrossFit at a competitive space is similar to that. So, and from there, the more I learn, the more I work with more people, the more it kind of grows and that knowledge base grows. And you end up working with some really high level games athletes,
Mm.
and they put their trust in you. So you again continue to try to just level up your learning so you can provide just a nugget of information to maybe that put them over the edge. And with that, uh, you know, 10 years later, I'm working with Mayhem, and I'm working with their team of coaches, and we're doing a lot of online programming for athletes that want to compete, and or just like they don't have a lot of time in the week, and they just want to know what they're doing is worth it and is worth their time. And so we kind of work with all level of athlete in that domain, and we just get to share our knowledge with that and hopefully kind of teach along the way.
Yeah. So you spent a long time very deep into the physiology of programming, exercise and performance programming. And at some level, and what we're going to really talk about here is the how that converts into golf performance, right? And what do golfers need for their performance, right, in their sport? You've done it all when it comes to the programming, because especially with a sport like CrossFit, everything is involved. It's power, strength, endurance, all the different lactic acid cycles you've probably memorized at some point, and all the energy transfer stuff. Like, it's all there. And with that being in the field for that long, uh, you're kind of a weapon when it comes to how can you manipulate the physiology to get the performance that you're looking for. And so what I really want to get into is kind of tell you a little bit more about what I'm seeing is missing in the golf field, what I'm seeing with my people, which includes young golfers who are giving it everything they have to go play college golf and get better play college golf, as well as older folks who just want to play better and live longer. And so I see it on both ends of the spectrum. and there's definitely some stuff missing. And we can talk a little bit about what exactly that is and how a general background in exercise physiology is missing in golfers, and then how can we be a little bit more specific for golfers and what that actually means to be more specific to golf. Um,
Yeah,
so an intense background, so folks know Mayhem, a huge CrossFit gym here in Tennessee. And my senior quote was for that the guy that is the founder there of CrossFit Mayhem. So important to me too. And so pretty impressive for you to be working with a group like that. So you
yeah,
definitely know what you're doing.
right. It's definitely a blessing, and it's one of those things where in the moment you're just head down, always just working, and then you get a chance to breathe. We just got finished with the CrossFit season, and you're like, oh, I had some friends reach out, and they're like, what you do is pretty cool, and I'm like, it is. I don't think about it in the moment because it's just you're constantly trying to provide for your athletes, and that's kind of my role here, and it's different for everyone. But ultimately, it's just again, how can I bring value to the person I'm working with, and with that is you you work really hard to help them achieve their goals, and their goals become my goal, and that's the carrot that I'm constantly chasing is, hey, how do we squeeze one more ounce of fitness from this person? And some of that can be working mentally as well, and a lot of it too is just preparation and getting their mind ready to go, you know, to compete. I don't want to say war, but it feels like that sometimes where it's like, yeah, man, we're about to battle for a while, and I want to make sure that that I'm in your corner, and you're not in this alone. And sometimes that's enough to kind of like, okay, let's give it our all. Let's go to work. So
Yeah, no doubt a mental battle. Similar, the mental battle of golf, the mental battle of injury too for golfers that are dealing with that. Um, in general, I want to really start diving in here with this idea or this topic that we were kind of chatting about before, which is what do golfers need exactly, especially when it comes to the weight room and preparation and strength conditioning. With your background, again, like I'd mentioned, you kind of touch on just about every aspect of human performance. Which of those aspects is most important for golfers? The first thing that everyone thinks needs to be addressed is we just need to do a whole bunch of rotation stuff, right? And it needs to look like we're rotating in all the exercises that we do. We most certainly do not. So the biggest missing piece of any golfer's program is the program. They're not exercising. So having general strength and conditioning as the backbone of their prehab and their fitness is the big missing link here for folks. Um, I talk with a lot of young golfers and even adults, right? They're just not exercising, and then they think when they want to invest in some fitness that it needs to now be rotation or rebalancing on like a Bosey ball or something. And so the biggest missing thing for folks is just a basic strength and conditioning program, or just hitting the important benchmark components of it, right? Working up some strength stuff, working into some conditioning stuff, and then working through some power stuff. And none of it's there. It's all very lightweight rotation stuff. So there needs to be some sort of input into rotation, but it can be so minimal. They do enough of it with their golf instructor and while they're out there practicing, right? And so there can be some tolerance built up to rotation. But the number one thing missing, and I was mentioning this earlier, of when we're building like a program at a golf club to bring to the members so that they can invest in some strength conditioning stuff, is you just need to have a solid backbone of what are the cycles, the mesocycles, the macrocycles. What is that going to look like, and is there actually
mhm.
something in place for that? From your background and experience, can you tell us what a mesocycle is, what a macrocycle is, and how that works?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's cool too because as I'm doing more research with the sport, and just understanding like the needs of the athletes that are at least in our area, it is like there are seasons to golf even if you're doing it recreationally. Like right now we're in the thick of kind of golf season where the people who enjoy it, they're going out there every week, and as we get closer to winter, it's like there's only so much you can do. And so this is kind of a kind of a great time to pull back and work on the base foundation that you were just talking about, Nick, as far as, hey, let's just get bigger, faster, stronger, just like in any sport, then apply that to the sport as we get closer to being, in season. So when we think about cycles, that's what we're thinking about with, you can call it mesos and macros, but essentially let's look big picture into small picture, right? And so big picture over the next 12 weeks, let's just say if golf play starts to really die down in let's say October, would that be kind of
Yep.
okay or fair to say?
I mean, we're going to be playing, but yeah, it'll die down a little bit for sure.
Right. Let's maybe even November may be easier. It's just like, hey, the weather's not great from that point. So, and then people will probably pick it back up in the spring. And so let's just say that's a 4 month block or a 16-week window where we really focus on what are our goals through these 16 weeks. And we typically can break that down into 4-week blocks within that, where we have specific goals that we're trying to achieve working through that. And once we kind of hit that, we can hit another 12-week block that's closer to going to in season, which may be more of a maintenance cycle. We're making sure that we're trying to maintain strength as much as possible, but really trying to focus on injury prevention because the repetition of the swing is happening more and more and more. And we're trying to build volume with that so that when you are getting into your play, your body's already in mid-season form when you get started because we've handled the volume from that. And so that's what I would be chasing when I'm working with an athlete, and that's with any sport, but in golf specific, of where are you at and how much time do we have? That's going to be our big block, and we're going to assess limitations from there. And it could just be, hey, I'm going to first look at with anybody what is good. Let's make sure let's clean up our imbalances as much as possible. And if we notice that, hey, left hip doesn't fire as good as right hip, let's shore up imbalances first. Now that we are closer to being balanced, we're going to hit another 8-week cycle of just building pure strength. And then that gets us back into power output and endurance. Yeah. So I hope that answers the question of how I would look at it.
Certainly does. And so you had mentioned first imbalances, and then we're going to dive into a, a more structured cycle that's a little bit longer, 8 weeks of we're going to try to peak strength. So we're going to go through from week to week. We're going to progress from one week to the next to get and put essentially more weight on the bar, whatever we're doing to get stronger. And then you leverage that into where you're doing more power focused and then some endurance stuff down there at the end too, right? So you can peak different things, but one builds off the other. Do golfers need strength?
So I think the way the sport is right now, absolutely.
Yeah, me too. Yes.
Everywhere, the way technology is going as well within clubs and balls themselves. Like I was just talking to another client about this. Like you're seeing that issue come up with you can't build golf courses for everyone anymore because you have such a high level that if you make the golf course playable for everyone, the people that are good are just going to drive the green everywhere they go because you're good. But you can't build the golf course for those because now the regular everydayers, it's going to take them forever to get to the green because they're not driving at 350, but everyone's anticipating that you can. So yes, absolutely, you need to be strong. I think for multiple reasons, not just for drive strength, but I think for longevity. The more muscles that we have around the joints, the more support we're giving the joints, allowing us to put more work into the joints, which essentially is how we're developing torque and creating power and force anyway. So having that base strength will keep you healthy in the long run, which I think curious to know like how high level we can go on this, but it's like at a lower level, people will believe like, well, strength training is where you get injured. And it's like, hey, I'll tell you this, like every movement can be a good movement depending on intensity and load. And so there's no such thing as a bad exercise, but there is bad movement within that. So as long as we're moving well, everything is going to be positive for the body. It's just understanding what does moving well look like.
Yeah, well said. It's probably one thing I run into the most is folks completely neglect strength, or they've been maybe told, or they've had examples of people that they know that they started strength training and then they got hurt. It's not because they were strength training, right? It's because of these things that were previously present and it was their play volume. And folks don't really appreciate that. and they were already getting injured. Yeah, you do need strength for the golf swing. Now, what we can do is play around with how we get there. And I'm not going to say that as golfers, we shouldn't be deadlifting or back squatting, because you can certainly be deadlifting and back squatting and it would be great for you. Sometimes there's situations where maybe it's not quite worth it, or we just don't need to do it. There's plenty of variations if someone is uncomfortable there, and especially if their body isn't quite ready to do it. If there's a major movement restriction or imbalance like you talked about earlier, well, great, we can get plenty strong while working around that or getting that work done. So we don't have to be loading you through a bunch of heavy back squats and putting load through the spine, but we can do it in other ways. And eventually at some point we're going to want to load through the spine, right? And we just got to do it the right way, because the spine goes through a lot and there's no other way to prepare it for the forces of the golf swing, which is less load but very fast. The body doesn't quite know the difference. It's forces and newtons at that point. So at some point we're going to need to put slow newtons through the spine and prepare that thing for it. And that's where a lot of junior golfers are running into trouble, is they're not prepared for the speed that they are starting to create, and the volume of play that they're having. And we're starting to run into a ton of low back stuff and mid back stuff. And then
Are
comes
you
the hip
seeing that?
problems and the hip impingements.
Are you seeing that too with a lot of athletes coming back from injury? Because that's always our biggest fear too. And this is even just in the exercise industry of, hey, I used to do this. It's been a while, but now I'm going to come back. I'm going to just hop right back into where I was. And it's like, man, you've degraded a lot since this point, and so we gotta build you back in. But your body and your mind thinks, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and hit this position or go this fast or try to swing this hard. And then, hey, we don't have the years of progression anymore because you're coming back from injury. So we're only going to re-injury or re-aggravate from there. Is that, I mean, are you seeing that a lot too?
Definitely. I can think of plenty of examples right now from this week where we're having conversations about, okay, are we ready to start swinging the short irons a little bit, right? Can we get the
Mm-hmm.
wedges back in your hand? I think this week, let's do that. Let's take 20 minutes, work up to some 80% swings on the pitch and wedge and the 9 iron, something like that, because we do have to ramp back up. And with golf, it's really easy to find your spot out there on the range and just bang balls. And you can do that for hours and it's not going to end up well. So we have to be really intentional with building back up physically, in the clinic, in the gym. And then we have to be really smart about putting a club back in your hand and how we ramp that up. Next week, can we take some full swings? Can we get you in the longer irons, right? Maybe we take 10 minutes. We're going to take 3 full swings with the driver on that next day. And that is it. Set it down, make sure we feel really good the next day. So there's a huge reprogression component to it after injury.
How do you keep your athletes patient enough for that?
Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes they understand, um, but I can never guarantee what they are doing or what they're not doing. Because I say you need to get to the range, but you can only we only want you swinging for about 20 minutes. And once they're there, it's like they just want to spend hours there. They want to stick around. They love it, and they're very, very motivated to continue to play. And golf is so frustrating that it's like the worse you do, the more you want to fix it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it is very difficult to make sure that things are all happening the way that you want it to. But it just takes some trust between you and the patient or the client that you kind of understand the load progression and the injury management here and how we need to reload that thing.
Right. The clients that I work with right now, we we compare so much of the swing to Olympic lifting because of at some point it becomes a technical issue, right? And when it becomes technique, you want to just drive it over and over and over and over again. And and so it's like I can relate to them when we're working with our CrossFit athletes on working with Olympic lifting, where it's like, hey, I can tell you that it's not your strength that's your issue, it's your technique. So it's like, well, we'll drill it all the way. But if we can improve the technique, the cool thing is like we don't have to put you on a huge strength progression for you to get better. If we can just take your time and work your way through the technique side of it, you can increase your accuracy and your length on all of this. And so it's always fun to see that, and that's what really I think what got me more excited about working with golfers from there. I'm like, man, there's so many just synergies to all sports in that sense, where it becomes a craft And then it's like, okay, so golf isn't so far apart than what I thought maybe at first, maybe 3 years ago. I'm like, man, this is actually everything that we're doing. It's just a different sport. So
100%.
um, no, it's cool. I think the other side of it, from the overall fitness side that we are talking about earlier, right? It's like the being naive to it, it's like, oh man, everything must be based off performance on the swing. And then you start talking to people and it's like, man, they fall apart, on the 15th hole. And it's like, oh, it's my technique failed me. It's like, or your fitness failed you, and it's like, hey, maybe your technique holds stronger if we have a base endurance or a base you know level of fitness that can carry you to 20 holes is how we would play it, right? It's like, hey, let's get you prepared to go 20 to 24 holes. So that way 18 holes is nothing. So that way you can continue to drive hard there. And I think that is maybe the learning curve that we're we're uphill against with most golfers right now, because they don't look at it as an endurance sport. They look at it as short bursts of action, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, it's one of our metrics that we'll even track here in clinic. We'll ask, does this hurt you during or after the round of golf? And they say during, what hole? And a lot of times they have an answer. It's like the 12th hole is when my hip starts hurting again. And half the time I can't even finish till 18. And so that's something we get to track. Hey, did we make it through 16 holes today? Did we make it through 18 and not feel like we needed to fall over, whatever it might be? People don't appreciate how athletic the golf swing is. When you really start performing an aggressive golf swing, the way that it's kind of designed to be done, it is extremely athletic. It's almost scary how athletic it is and how much energy it is, right? When you really start swinging the club well, um, it's a lot, and you can really start to imagine from there, man, a full round is a ton of work. And so things do start to break down, mechanics, but also the biomechanics, and that's when pain and tissue starts getting irritated. But if we bring it back to like, what do we need for golfers? We need that general strength to build the power off of, so that we can become more powerful, but also we can become more efficient with that power, right? And so that we can do it for longer without starting to get fatigued. And then there's that general endurance component to it, so that doesn't become a hindrance, right? That starts to decrease power or change your mechanics, right? It's got to be the number one problem with golfers that start to run into pain. Maybe number two, we'll call it. Maybe it's tied for first. One is uh, poor mobility, right? If we keep it really simple, they truly cannot move into the positions they're trying to move into. They cannot do it. It requires so much. It's just like how aggressive a golf swing really is when you do it well. The positions you have to get into, the joint space you have to use to actually get into your lead side hip and create 2 times body weight in newtons on that lead side at the same time. It's super aggressive and very athletic. Um, that combined with the fact that we don't have that baseline endurance, um, we get fatigue out, that starts to create problems for us, right? It's like the two number one things. Um, so addressing that, really important. We don't need to get on a Bosey ball and rotate until we fall over. We need strength. Olympic lifts would be amazing. Like, I love Olympic lifting. We do some in here. We'll do some kettlebell stuff, especially towards the end of a treatment plan, because of how important it is. Can we generate force efficiently, right, and be powerful? Olympic lifting is great for that. And another thing I really wanted to note when it comes to what do golfers need is they need to learn how to athletically create power, and just using their body, just being athletic to create power. And be surprised at how many golfers have missed out on that development. They've learned how to swing a club, but they've really missed out on what does it mean to actually create efficient power. Throw a med ball against a wall. What do you do? And some people struggle with it to do it well. And these are built into the swing. They really are. And it can make your patterns so much more efficient if we start to learn that stuff. So again, just doing this stuff where you're not trying to hit a little white ball, and doing this in a place where you can maximize your effort, like in a gym, goes a long way when you put that little white ball back in front of you. And then you just learn how to do that efficiently, right? You can build the backbone in the gym where it's safe, where you don't have to worry about shanking anything, right? And that is not part of the performance. It's just about max effort, right? Really helpful. And now,
yeah, I
when it
mean,
comes
take
to,
a
sorry, we got this delay that we're working on here. When it comes to your background, something that you're really effective at doing that. Um, what kind of gives us the path to learning these patterns, or how do we go about testing it from your perspective? I wanted to talk a little bit about, which is basically where can you and other professionals like you learn, again, having the background, which I want to reemphasize is the number one most important thing, is having a backbone of a strength and conditioning macro cycle, right? Just having that there. How do we know to fill in the details? TPI certification, really helpful. Titleist Performance Institute.
Yeah.
Any certification isn't going to get you anywhere, right? CSCS, any of the other personal training certifications, whatever it might be, CrossFit level 2 or 3, whatever. Like anyone who's done a certification before knows that it's not the answer, right? But they can be really, really helpful. TPI will tell you exactly what you need to know about what is happening in the golf swing, and then you can use your background to really get creative about manipulating that data to create a program, essentially, right, for golfers. So
Exactly.
TPI level 1 and then fitness and power level 2s would be really helpful for any strength conditioning professional looking to use their talents with golfers.
No, and that's helpful, and that's where it's like, hey, again, there's so much out there that can tell you like, oh, you need this, and you need this, and that's again where I kind of reached out to you. And like, man, Nick, there's just so much. What do you recommend on that side of it to be able to focus? What's going to give me the best bang for my buck in that sense, not from a cost standpoint, but what's going to teach me everything that I know, just so that's like, I think what we've talked about is just packaging it together in a sense like, hey, I know what to do once the client's been given to me, in a sense of, okay, let's assess, let's go from there. But then again, packaging it of just making sure that we're maximizing the time with you, that this is actually going to set you up to do exactly what you want, instead of just a generalist idea of, hey, I understand that you need to get fitter. I understand that we have imbalances in the left hamstring and the right shoulder. So we're going to shore that up. But also, if there's a way that I can specifically apply that to your sport, I want to be able to have that knowledge and have the confidence that, hey, between A and B exercises, I actually prefer B, and this is why, and I can tell you why and go through that. And that's just I want to be able to provide as much value from a teaching standpoint too, so that way when they are like, hey, these are the 5 things I want you to do for your warm up before you go into your play session. And it's like, do these things. And I also want you to do these 5 things when you're done as well. So that way we're keeping the maintenance going from that. And that's going to set you up for the next day of play as well. Now, I know that's more of the rehab and pre-care, but that's also, to me, that's performance. And again, it's like, I know I cannot visualize what they need, but having a knowledge base from a group of experts is always going to be a better use of everyone's time.
Yes, 100%. It's, yeah, TPI will deliver all that for you. How do you choose the accessory lifts, right? That's very, very specific to the person in front of you, to the golfer in front of you. That general backbone of strength conditioning, and then TPI level 1 will help you understand how the body really connects to the swing, right? And so where movement inefficiencies are with your golfer, how can I start to identify them? Level 1, that'll tell you. It'll tell you all the detailed biomechanics of the golf swing, that again you can use your background and your experience to see, oh, I can think of some movements that'll really help address this
Mm-hmm.
component of the swing. And now I can kind of have an assessment that'll tell me if this golfer sucks at that or not, right? Or if they're really, really good at it and it's their superpower, right? And we can have days where we train the superpower, right? And make sure that we're not taken away from that superpower. Fitness level 2 would be really, really helpful. It'll give you some more fitness specific testing. So it'll give you some baselines in upper body strength, push versus pull, and then some lower extremity strength, and then lower extremity power testing, which is just a vertical height test, right? And it'll give you standardized data on like where golfers should be or where they should be aiming to be based off their height and weight and based off PGA standards, right? Both of those, and you can compare. So now you can really be a benefit to the golfer and saying, hey, we're going to collect this data and we are going to not only identify maybe where you're not moving so well, but we're going to identify where the strength weaknesses are. And maybe we see, hey, you actually are super strong in the lower half. You're right where we want you. So we're going to help maintain your superpower, right? And we're going to keep that revved up. And you actually, your push strength is fantastic. Your pull strength, which is about 30% in terms of significance when it comes to the golf swing, higher than the push strength, is completely lacking, right? So this is a major weakness that we didn't know about, that no one knew about, your swing coach didn't know about, that we are perfect for fixing, right? Like this is going to be a major part of how I design the next 8-12 weeks, right? And we're going to make sure we don't miss out on that. We got your superpowers. We know where you're missing, and we have the data to support that this is something that needs to be better. And then we can retest. And then it'll give you power testing as well, some med ball throw testing and different things. And we can see, hey, you're super strong here, but you don't develop force very fast, right? And so when we get to the power part of this, we're going to make sure that we're doing some work that's going to transfer back to this test, because TPI has done all the hard work to identify which tests actually assess the joint mechanics and the nervous system components of power development, right? That is specific to the golf swing. So TPI level 1 and fitness level 2, and then power is really fun because it'll give you more background in specifically just developing force power. It'll give you the kinetic sequence, which is like the ground reaction forces of the golf swing, and just all fun stuff that can be worked on in a weight room, right? Like this is a perfect place to work on it. It's not a great place to work on out on the range at first, right? You got to tighten it up on the range, but you want to spend the time in the weight room to start working through these patterns, because otherwise you're gonna spend an hour hurting yourself trying to develop more speed and force on the golf course if you haven't built the body to do it first, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, how can we strip away all the variables that we can to isolate the one thing that we need, and that's in a controlled room like a gym, or in our weight room that we have, because we can take the time to specifically work on the one thing that we need, and we can address what is the right exercise to help develop this. If you're out in the field, it's like I'm swinging, here we go. That's what we're going to do, and it's like we can try to make corrections there, but we can't isolate and develop like you'd want to in the weight room. So yeah, I agree. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very inspiring, especially for these younger golfers that are just not doing fitness training, and they know where they need to get their ball speed to, right? If they really want
Hmm.
to be an effective college golfer, the stats are all out there, and they're chasing them and chasing them, but they're not getting in the weight room. They're not building the capacity to do it, and they're not building the performance end either. So they're going to hurt themselves, and they're not going to get to their goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No,
a
that's so
huge
true.
resource, but it still relies on your background on strength conditioning, right? That's number one. And then TPI is just a phenomenal addition to what you already do really good, right? What you're a professional at.
Right. And the part that gets me excited about it as well is how do you now take that and still work in the sport that I'm currently in, right? And so it's like, hey, everything that we're working through, and that's the beauty of CrossFit in itself, is that from a high level side of it, they're constantly bringing in new sport to test these athletes in,
That's right.
and so you're kind of MacGyvering, where it's like you're never going to have the exact thing. Like even this year, they just had to throw sandbags as far as they could. And it's like that's not really a sport, but there's other things that we can do that mimic that. And it's like, okay, in the same sense of the med ball throws, of like, we have done that. Let's assess how we've rotated that way. Let's see how we can apply that to the sandbag that we're doing. So the same thing, it's a two-way street, where the more I learn about what helps develop a golfer in that sense will also come to apply with the pro athletes that I work with on the CrossFit side. And then from there, it also works back over to the golfer as well. So,
100%.
um, yeah, man, that's what like gets me excited about it, and because it's a it's such a massive sport that I think it still applies from the way CrossFit works. It's an individual sport. There's no defense. It is you developing you as best as you can and then going out and performing. And it's like, man, that's exactly what
That's right.
CrossFit is. And so that's what got me so attracted to the sport of golf. Because I don't even play golf. And I don't even know if that's a good thing to say, but I love watching Scotty Scheffler work. I love watching how he approaches the sport, how he goes into every round. And then you start learning about all these other athletes through. I'm like, man, what are they doing? man, their mental game is it's the exact same thing that we're working through here. Their
For sure.
preparation is exactly the same. And so, like, man, this sport is fun. And then, hey, you start to realize, like, okay, there's some things that I can bring to the table too that will hopefully help someone in the long run because
Hmm.
I get for the college hopeful of how much work they have to put in for the opportunity to do it is the same as a an up and comer CrossFitter trying to make it to a semifinal. It's like it takes a lot of work, but when they achieve that, it's just gratifying for everyone, the family, the coaches, and the player. And you're just like, man, that's always a high that I'm trying to chase is helping someone get to that level and then beyond from there too.
100%. Yeah, wonderful, man. You do a pretty good job of that. What I'd like to see is a long drive competition in the CrossFit Games next year.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. You would see a lot of non they so going back, they had a softball toss maybe 15 years ago, and they had to throw it with their right arm and their left arm.
Interesting.
Or excuse me, they wanted to do it, throw it with their right arm and their left arm, but they let them all use their dominant arm. But you still have people just never thrown before, and you're just like, woof. So asking someone to use a
Yeah,
tool to strike a ball to hit it as far as they can, from a CrossFit standpoint, I don't think would be a very good show
I'm sure.
of
It
their
would be fun.
capability or their
I
capacity.
know.
It would be fun. It would be so nerve wracking from a coaching standpoint too. But then you're gonna have three guys that like, oh yeah, I golfed in high school, and you're just like, oh, here we go.
Yep.
So,
Trivium should do that. We should go have a long drive night.
oh, absolutely. So we've been kicking the can on trying to get a simulator at the Tribune location, and it's like, hey, that's gonna be a Saturday in November, where it's like, hey, just come out, bring your clubs,
Yeah,
and we're gonna make a day of it. So,
perfect.
um, yeah, man, we're all in. It's fun.
Yeah, look forward to that. Well, very good, man. Any other questions that you have on what I'm seeing on the rehab side of Nashville golf, older folks, younger folks, on what they need or what I'm seeing that they are missing or should be investing in?
Yeah, I think the biggest question is how many people are being proactive to I think this is me being naive to it. It's like, are you I feel like you're getting a lot of people after something's already gone wrong, right? It's like, hey, I don't need you until I get hurt, right? It's like you don't go get your car maintenance until you get the check engine sign, but you should have done it every 10,000 miles to begin with, and you wouldn't even have the check engine sign. Like, do you think that's the majority of your clientele, or is it more so it is people that are becoming more proactive of, I want to get ahead of this so that this doesn't happen?
Yeah, it's probably I'll probably have 30% of folks that come in that don't really have any pain. And they just know one is they've had the same swing lesson for a year. And they know and their golf coach knows, and maybe even their coach sent them to me and they're like, hey, I'm just doing the same thing here. I can't quite get this move that I've been working on. And so we do a comprehensive look and we look under the hood at everything. Right. And so they're not really coming in with pain. They just know they have these big restrictions that are holding back their performance. And then there's some other half of the folks that are coming in without any pain, but they just know that they don't move well. Right. And it doesn't really have much to do with the golf swing, but they know I probably could play better and that's important to me, but really I just want to age well. Right. And I know that I right now that's probably not going to happen. So 70% are coming in with pain. Now a lot of folks will come in and invest in the longevity part of it. Like, okay, now that I'm moving well, I say two things. Okay, let's get on strength conditioning program here. Like, let's just get you moving. I don't care what it is, right? Just do something consistently. And then two, go back to your swing coach because right now is the perfect time to start working back through things. You got a completely new body. It's time to learn the patterns, right? And we try to work on that in here, but at some point you got to get back out in front of the with your guy and work through the very fine details of it all. So yeah, some folks come in proactively and then they stick around because they're like, I want to stay, right? I want to feel like this forever. Um, but for the most part, it requires some significant pain for some folks before they actually come in. Like they got to deal with it for 5 years, and it only is getting worse before like, okay, I'll take the time to do this.
Yeah, you get to that point where they forget what it feels like to not be pain free. It becomes like the norm, right? And
That's
then
right.
it's like, hey, Same thing we see in the gym where it's like deadlifts always hurt my back, and they just assume that that's what's supposed to happen. They assume that, yeah, deadlift is supposed to like make your back super, super sore. So we have to go back and teach them like, hey, this is a hamstring glute exercise. Let's figure out if it's a core bracing issue, if it's a flexibility issue,
Hmm.
or is it a neuromuscular connectivity issue? Like, is your brain just not telling the muscles to work the way they're supposed to work, or you're not firing at the right time? And so that's where I enjoy it too. It's like, oh man, I'm about to just change your world. Now I can't wait. Like you're gonna love a deadlift after we get finished working through it, and then that unlocks a whole new thing that they can take for the rest of their life as well. So it's cool. I know when you work with your athletes, like, you do such a great job of packaging it in to something that's simple and digestible. That's like, hey, you can do these things at home right now. You don't. It doesn't have to be overly complex, but you do need a. It helps to have a professional's eye to give you the confidence that these are the three things that you need to do, and you'll see improvement. And you're like,
That's right.
oh man, yeah. So
Yeah, really, really helpful, really effective when we start getting folks moving in here. They see their numbers starting to change. We master some of these movements. Say, I want you to do these exact things at home. I'll tell you exactly when, for how long. I'll have the videos. Everything's broken down for you.
yep, no, that's fantastic.
Perfect. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you hopping on.
No, man, this has been great. I could talk. I mean, we can go for hours on it, man. When we start getting into the sports performance side of it, it's my favorite. So no, I appreciate you having me. This was good.
Of course. All right, man. Well, we'll get you back another time. And for now, we'll see you in the gym.